Listening in, welcome. We are so glad that you're here. Maybe you're cozied up in your living room, joining us on the live stream. We're so glad that you could be here tonight. My name's Matt Pardee.
And I'm Mary Lynn Pardee.
This is my wife. You probably knew that. So we are very excited to share with you tonight and create some great conversation. We've been married for coming up on 22 years. So we've learned some. Yes, thank you. 22 years together.
Yeah.
And we're excited to share some strengths and weaknesses of our marriage. And as you're just getting settled in there again, we're so glad that you're here. Give yourself a round of applause just for coming to be here. Good job. Honestly, this can be kind of an intimidating thing to come to. Maybe for some of you, like, oh, this is awesome. This is going to be so fun, and we're excited. But maybe for some people, depending on where you are in your relationship, maybe you're a little bit nervous about tonight, and this felt like a little bit of an insecure thing to come. We're so glad that you are here, too. And for those that are listening on the live stream, again, welcome. We just wanted to kind of start off with telling you a little bit about the night. We've got some topics for you to discuss. So Mary Lynn and I will share some things from our marriage and just try to encourage you. But as I mentioned, sometimes you come to these things and honestly, it could bring up some insecurity, or you're thinking, why are these two up here? Because we're definitely not experts. So we want to share some weaknesses. We want to share some struggles with you, and we think that's really important, for a couple reasons. So it helps you just kind of be more at ease and be transparent in your own lives and kind of brings everybody's nerves down. But it also just really helps you know that you're not alone. So again, we're going to go through some of these topics, and then we'll give you 5 or 10 minutes to talk through some things, and those topics and questions will come up on the screen. So how are you feeling about this? You excited?
I am excited. I love doing these. This is really fun. And just to reiterate, we are in no way experts. Our marriage is not perfect in any way. We have lots of struggles, our own struggles, just like everyone else. We just want to be a catalyst for good conversation and really just to help facilitate you guys getting closer. That's the goal. So if we can be part of that, God using us in that way, then we really want to do that. But yeah, we're in no way the perfect marriage. So
yes,
to lay that out there.
And we'll share some of that with you tonight. So it's always good to kind of start off these times with some encouraging words. So we want to talk briefly about how that has played into our marriage recently, because we have had some struggles even recently that we thought would be really good to share with you, and how important encouraging words are. So that's the first topic. That's the first category for tonight, the importance of encouraging words. And Mary Lynn and I, when we do premarital counseling, we like to remind couples of this all the time. And maybe if you've been married for a little while, you know that when you get married, the strengths are quite high that you see in your significant other. You see them and you think, wow, this person's awesome. I want to spend the rest of my life with them. And you kind of have this graph. Imagine all their qualities and all the things that you look forward to. And the weaknesses or the struggles that you think you might have, or the annoyances that you might see in them, are quite low.
Very small. Very small.
Yes. Or you wouldn't probably want to marry them. And the temptation is in every relationship that this kind of happens over time, where you begin to be tempted to focus less on the strengths, and you start to discover more things that you are surprised by or that you don't like about that person, or some of their selfishness comes out. And so this thing starts to happen in your marriage where you'll be tempted to start fixating on their weaknesses. And that's something that happens to every marriage and every relationship. And so where we put our eyes and what we focus on is really important, because we will always need to be giving each other encouraging words. If I see her weaknesses and I only talk about her weaknesses and I bring those up and I think about those a lot, obviously that's going to change your feelings about this person. It's going to change your heart. It's going to change your mind. So there's this discipline. There's this intellectual discipline, there's this spiritual discipline about thinking and speaking life into this person that you love and that you want to blossom into this amazing person. And so,
and I love Philippians 4:8, where it says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And sometimes I could look at that person and be like, well, it is true he's grumpy, or it is true he's irritable, or those things are true. But I love that because it's like, well, is it true and lovely and praiseworthy and admirable? And just like, that's such a good like test. Not that we ignore weaknesses, but what are we, really thinking about and focusing on in the other person? So.
Yes. So since you brought that up, that's been the issue lately. It's been a hard year for me, and the thing that's been affecting our marriage probably a decent amount is the irritability that I've been struggling with, probably more than any time in our marriage. Maybe feelings of anger or frustration. And I've been coming home, and she'll tell me, "Man, you just seem a little different. You don't seem as gentle or compassionate or kind or funny." And I'm super funny, super funny. And that's just been declining.
Come on, where's your game?
So maybe you can jump in there about like what you've been seeing in me and how that's been affecting you.
Yeah, I mean, just to be honest, we want to say, oh, I, rise to the occasion, and I let him, he's having a terrible, couple days, and it's fine, and I just deal with the kids by myself, and I have a great attitude. And I'd love to say that that's the truth, but it's really hard. Like, it's like, hey, I get up. I'm tired too. I'm grumpy too. And, it's easy to fixate on that instead of all the wonderful things he's doing, like taking care of our family, providing our family, being such a great leader. And so, but those irritable things or the irritating things, you can just start to concentrate on and let the other things be diminished.
And usually what brings me out of those times, obviously, is just time with the Lord and really being with God, but also her encouraging words to me. Mm-hmm. So when our significant other isn't doing well, and that will happen, and it does happen all the time, we have this choice to make. Am I going to shame them out of this? Am I going to critique the heck out of them? Am I just going to focus on this day after day and bringing this up and their weaknesses? And I'm not saying we sweep it under the carpet, but there's this godly thing of bringing up the truth with love and helping them come out of it. And I know that's one of my big things is encouraging words. So as she encourages me and says amazing things to me, that really helps me kind of become the person that I know God wants me to be. So after New Year's Eve, you had some struggles too.
Yeah, and we just wanted to lay this stuff out here, like just hopefully as we're vulnerable, it will help you to feel like you can be vulnerable with each other. But so I battle with anxiety. I've always struggled with anxiety, and after New Year's, I kind of went into one of these anxiety situations and lasted for a couple weeks. And we were supposed to go away for our like a little anniversary trip for a couple days. We were super excited about it. He was really looking forward to getting away, but I was just feeling so funky that we ended up canceling our trip. Now that's really disappointing. That's like a super letdown. In marriage, those things are and he could focus on, wow, why did I marry you? Why are you so anxious all the time? Why can't you get it together? And it's okay to be disappointed. He was disappointed. But the truth is, if I could, it's not like I wanted to be, anxious. And he would focus on the things that I'm strong in and forgive me and move past it and not let it.
Yeah. Because the cool thing about that is I've seen her battle anxiety her whole marriage and do it so well, like finding ways to be in the Word and she's grown so much in it. So it's at that point, it's easy. We're in the category of encouraging words, and the reason that we're sharing all this difficulty right now is to kind of paint this picture for you, is when it's easy, when you see all these beautiful things, when your significant other is doing well, it is easy to encourage them. Mm-hmm. It's in these moments that we've had the last few weeks where I'm super irritable and I am not in the spirit and she's anxious and we're just like bothering each other. Those are the moments that are so crucial. It's like, man, I have to do the right thing. She has to do the right thing, and we start encouraging each other. So, we were battling through that. We were trying to have some good conversations, hours of conversations for probably a couple weeks. Yeah. And a couple dates in there to really work through this. And it finally got to that point where we were really finally getting over the hump. And I was just trying to encourage her and say, oh my gosh, you've been heroic in your battle with anxiety. She has been so godly and so in the Word and so pursuing God and just trying to overcome her fears. And I love how kind she is, and I love how beautiful she is, and how amazing she is. And I just started thinking of all the great things that she brings to our marriage, all the great things she brings to our family. And as I say these things, as I speak these things, she starts becoming less anxious and more secure in God and more secure in our relationship. And so we have found that to be a really important thing in our marriage. And do you want to share any more about that before we give them questions?
I was just saying, sometimes you can feel embarrassed, like if you're not like a naturally encouraging words person, it can feel embarrassing or vulnerable to be like, I think you're really sweet, or like you just might feel dumb. But the thing is it's so good for you to learn to do, and it feels so good. Like, do you ever get sick of hearing nice things about yourself? Especially from the person you love the most. Never. So even if you feel awkward, it's so important to push through that. So
if you were a fly on the wall in our house, you'd probably think we were extremely cheesy. And our kids say that all the time. They just rip on us for all the kind things that we say to each other. But we know that we're teaching them good things. So, okay, it's your turn to talk with your significant other. And we have some questions that are going to come up here on the screen. And we wanted to start off on a positive note. So this isn't a time to critique or a time to like correct them on what they say or anything like that. You're just going to share 3 things that you admire and love about your significant other. What are some strengths? We need to hear that. We need to keep hearing that our whole life. The strengths that God's given us, the talents that God's given us. As Mary Lynn said, you can never hear enough of that, and it helps you become who you were intended to be in God. And then what is something they have done recently that encouraged you? So we'll give you 8 or 10 minutes or so. I think there might be a countdown video, but we'll pull you back together here in a little bit. So enjoy talking amongst. hope that maybe there's some eagerness to continue that part. Maybe in your date time tonight, you can continue that if that wasn't enough time. So the second part we want to talk about, is our emotional insides and our spiritual life. So this is the internal life part. So I know some of the guys start squirming a little bit right now. It's like, oh, we're going to talk about emotions. But it's more than that. It's like what's really going on the inside. And even as Mary Lynn was sharing, and the difficult times that we go through and the difficult seasons, to like be able to get below those layers and really evaluate, like, yeah, how are you doing? And I've noticed since we've had kids, that is really difficult to do. There's different seasons of life and different seasons of your relationship when you're busy or you're distracted or there's children. So many different things that are going on that can just kind of let you drift from really know what's going on in that person's heart. And so that's kind of this part right here. So to kind of just talk about the importance of our spiritual life, if I could hit on that for a moment. I learned this very early on. I always feel embarrassed when I share this story, but I really wanted to be an A-plus husband when I got married. And when we were engaged and getting ready for the wedding day, I thought, I am going to be such an amazing husband that I will never make my wife cry. I really believe that.
Ever.
Yes. I know, isn't that ridiculous? But I don't know why I was just so deceived. I was very naive, and I just thought, yeah, I'm going to go for this. Well, that lasted one day. One day.
Not even a whole day, I don't think.
Not even 24 hours. At the honeymoon night, that next morning, I woke up to her crying. Did you wake me up crying?
No, you were already awake, but then I woke up crying.
Yeah, and then she woke up crying. I was like, wow, this is going to be tough. This is going to be really tough. And I was like, what in the world could you possibly be crying about? This is awesome. We just had an awesome wedding. I try not to be too insecure about her tears. But anyway, I realized right away, I'm going to need God. This is going to be beyond me. This is going to be a supernatural thing for me to be a good husband and also to meet the needs in her life. I'm surely not going to be able to meet all those needs. And we turn to Ephesians 5 a lot for relationship stuff, which is a great chapter. And we always kind of go down to the husband and wife part. Maybe you know this chapter. If not, that's okay. But there's a verse above that part that says this, Ephesians 5:21. Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. And I love that verse, and we skip past that verse a lot. And the reason that that's really important, when we see that word submit, we don't always know how to explain that or what that really means. But you think of that word as like support, to serve, to be a cheerleader, to get this person's back. You know, it's like if I'm going to help and serve and bless and cheerlead and get behind anybody in my life, surely I want to get behind her and submit to her and help her and encourage her and build her up to accomplish what God wants her to do. And why do I do that? Because she's always a great person? Yeah, that could be a part of it. But no, it's out of reverence for Christ. It's how we worship God. We do this because God is loving toward us, and He cheerleads us, and He has our back, and He has sacrificed for us, and He loves us. And so we really need this part from God to be able to be the husband that we want to be the wife that we want to be. And so we need Christ, or we're not going to be able to fulfill, these vows that we have. So go ahead.
And I think too, it's easy to think like this is, I think some of you have heard this story, but my dad, like when I was single, asked me he said, okay, I want you to write up a list of everything that you're looking for in a husband. So I was like, okay, Dad. So I make up this list and give it to my dad, and he goes, so you want to marry Jesus? And I was like, exactly, like pretty high expectations. But it was good to see, because I think a lot of times we go into marriage thinking, oh, this person's going to complete me. This person is going to fill that hole that they're choosing me. They're going to, it's going to take care of everything. We don't maybe really believe that in our head, but in our heart, we kind of do. And so just even realizing, wow, you get married and then you realize there's still a gigantic hole in me that this person cannot fill. And I need God to do that. I need to work hard at my relationship with God. I need to be intimate with Him. And then, one, it's so much pressure on your spouse to meet that need that you're putting pressure on them to meet. And secondly, they just can't. And you need that from God. So it's easy to,
Yeah, and I was just bouncing off of that. I think you try to prepare yourself that your expectations aren't too high, or that when you kind of, I think our year 7 or something, we really had a hard year, and then another hard year at 13. And I can't remember exactly what the year was, but when we were having a hard conversation and we said, "Man, I'm disappointed in you," and you said, "I'm disappointed in you," and that felt like a really upsetting thing to admit. And we have a fantastic marriage. I'm very thankful for our marriage. But I think there was this healthiness to it that maybe we put this pressure on ourselves that I am going to make her so happy. I'm going to perform so well and just do such a great job and be so loving and obey all these commands. And she is just going to be content, and you that way toward me.
I think too, I can just say, I'm going to try harder. Like, I'll do this. I'll stick my heels in and be like, well, I'll just try harder to not be anxious, or I'll just try harder to meet your needs, or, I'll just, and the thing is that I can be given 100% effort and he can be given 100% effort, and we can still be like this. It's like you need God. There's no other way to fill in that gap. And so I just think that brings so much relief, knowing that we aren't good enough. We're never going to be good enough to meet all their needs, but God is big enough to meet all their needs.
So I think, just to kind of reiterate the gospel, maybe you're sitting here and you're thinking, "Man, I know God's in our relationship, and that is fantastic," and maybe you're pursuing the Lord well, and you feel God working in your marriage or in your relationship, and that is fantastic. We all need to hear that reminder again of the gospel, that we can only do this, and it can only become something amazing with God's help. Maybe you're sitting here, or maybe you're listening on the live stream, and you're like, "I don't even know what that means to have God in my relationship. I feel very far from God right now." Maybe you're feeling like, "I'd be embarrassed if anybody knew how I don't even understand how God can help my marriage." We have met people like that, and we understand that, and we just want to say, God is for your relationship. God wants to bless you. If there's things from the past, things that you've done before the relationship or after the relationship that are interfering in your love and your intimacy right now, then that's the opportunity to experience the forgiveness of Jesus Christ. That without that forgiveness, the times where I just mess up and I feel like I'm a louse and I really let her down and she's crying again, and how am I going to get past this? And I don't even know if I want to try anymore. And maybe nobody else can help you in that moment except God, where you get with God and He says, "I can help you. I can bless you." As you revere me, as you bring your awe to God and say, "God, I humbly need you. I need you to forgive me. I need you to forgive whatever's happening in our relationship." And man, He lifts us up. I really do feel like every good thing in our marriage is from God and from following the Scriptures.
It always really encourages me to remember, He's for your marriage. If you're married right now, that person is God's, choice for you. There's no second guessing it. You never have to second guess that. So it is God's will to help you have a great marriage and to work through things. And He's for you. And that always just brings me encouragement, knowing He's helping me. He wants this to work. So
I'm always really into team stuff, and I know I share a lot of sports analogies, but I just really love that, and I feel like it's applicable to everything in life. And because I love team, and I think of the teamwork and working together and the roles that mesh together, and it's just really a beautiful thing. And I view that as like God's the coach. He's the coach of this team. And if we're all working together as a team, we're going to win. And when I'm not listening to the coach and we are going in separate directions, and there's chaos because we're not united. Like, I know we're going to lose. I know the division that comes and the walls that get built up. And it can get so bad if you're not close with God and you're just so like upset. It's like your teammate is going up for a layup, to win the game. And you're, as a teammate, you come along and just foul them, knock them to the floor, a flagrant foul, a technical foul. Everybody be like, what in the world are you doing? That's your teammate. They were almost going to win. And as absurd and silly as that sounds, we can get like that in our marriage. We can forget that we're on the same team and we just want to foul them. We want to hurt them, or we want to be selfish. And these are the God moments, that we have such a big heart. I see all the Christian couples, they weave together the three things, the three chords. They pour the sand together. They do the communion together. Like, oh, let's feed each other cake, at the reception. There's all these sweet symbolic things that people do at their wedding. And I'm always so concerned that that's like the most they acknowledge God in their relationship. And so these vows that we make and these symbolic things we do should be on our minds all the time of like, what is God doing in our relationship? So let's give you some time to talk about that, your inner life, just to share. And again, as we're kind of getting going, I don't know where all of you are at and the comfortability of this. Maybe for most of you, this is easy, and that's fantastic. You can be open and talk, and there's not much conflict going on. But maybe there's some here, and you're like, man, our marriage and our relationship is really struggling. Let's, again, just try to be welcoming to God in this relationship. Try not to shame each other. Try to just own what you can when you're talking about your heart and be affirming to the person as they're sharing. But here's the questions, is just how are you doing? It's been a crazy time. How's your inner life? Just share whatever you feel like you need to share on your heart so that that person knows. How are you doing spiritually? Do you feel close to God? Again, no shame, but the honesty of your spiritual life is very important for your significant other to hear. And then what can you even do just this week to bring God into your relationship a little bit more? So go ahead and enjoy those questions talking. into the next section. Sorry to cut you off if you're in the mid-sentence of something very deep. We apologize. Hopefully that'll carry over into your date time. All right, so this next section, very important. They're all very important, but this is the one that we probably love talking about the most. And this is just about service and selflessness and the importance of this. And this is always something that we need to remember that's so easy to forget. Speaking of forgetfulness, I want to start off with a joke, a great joke. So there's this couple, and that's me trying to, get you to laugh at the end of this thing. But so there's this old couple, and they're kind of losing their memories. They're becoming forgetful, like we all can be. And they're sitting there watching TV and enjoying their show. And the old man gets up, the husband gets up and says, "Hey, I'm going to go in and get some ice cream. Is there anything you want?" She's like, "Yeah, I'd love some ice cream too." And he's like, "You want anything on it?" She's like, "Yeah, I'll take some strawberries." And he's like, "Okay, strawberries." She goes, "You should write this down because you know how forgetful you are, right? I want ice cream with strawberries." He goes, No, I got this. I don't need to write anything down." It's like, "Do you want anything else?" She goes, "Yeah, I want some walnuts on it too. But you really need to write this down. I know how you are. You're going to forget. I'm going to get mad." He's like, "Come on, trust me. Anything else?" She's like, "I want strawberries, I want walnuts, and I would like some whipped cream too. But you really should write this down." He's like, "I got it." He goes into the kitchen. He's, moving around. You hear stuff moving in pots and pans. And she's like, "What is going on?" Minutes are going by, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. She's like, "I knew, what the heck?" He comes back in, hands her a plate of bacon and eggs. And she's like, "I knew it. Where's the toast?" Dun-dun-dun. They're both forgetful. They're both very, very forgetful. And you and I can be like that with these basic things of marriage. So I can't remember what year this was. This is when we were on Grove Street, and we were getting ready to do some marriage type of thing. And I came into the kitchen, and I said, "Mary Lynn, if you could give me one word to describe marriage, what would it be?" Think for a moment. I'm going to think, and I want us to both say our word at the same time. And so I'm thinking, I'm like, the number one word, the best word, what would it be? And she's like, "Okay." She's thinking. It's like, "I got it." And I was like, "Okay, I got mine." And we said together,
Sacrifice.
Sacrifice. That was the word that we both came up with. I was like, wow, this is cool to be like-minded. I don't know if that's good that we said that's the word, but that was the word that came to both of our minds. And so this category of continually laying down your life for your significant other, serving them selflessly, is so important. And it's so easy to forget, especially after the years go on and 22 years, like, come on, I've put in my time. Can I kind of take my foot off of the brake or off of the gas a little bit? I remember in year 13 when we had a hard time, I remember thinking, man, I'm tired of just trying so hard. I'm going to let my foot off the gas here. And it was miserable. It was so terrible. I was keeping score of who was serving the other one more. It was a really discouraging season for us. And I kind of just forgot to live out this verse that Jesus asks us all to walk according to in Matthew 16:24. Then Jesus said to his disciples, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me will find it." I have found that verse to be so true. The more I lose my life for Jesus, the more I empty myself, the more I deny myself, the more I live sacrificially, the deeper the joy in my heart, the deeper the joy in our marriage. And I know that you would feel that same way as we're just talking about ways that we serve each other, ways that we sacrifice for one another, and how that can even change in our marriage over the years.
Yeah, isn't it hard to sacrifice? I mean, I don't know. It's hard to be selfless. And I just feel like as the older I get, you think, oh, it'll root out on my selfishness. But it's always there. There's always new levels of selfishness, new reasons, I want my way. Easy easy not to be looking out for the other person. But when you do, it's like makes your marriage so much richer. And I found that it's really good to ask, like, or to how can I serve you? Like, sometimes, especially after you've been married longer, you don't have as much time or you don't have as much money or whatever, and you, instead of just doing lots of different things, like I'll ask him specifically, what do you want me to do that would be most serve you right now, because I need to know specifically what you need. And that can seem unromantic, but it actually is great because your needs change over the years, for sure.
Absolutely. We were listening to a podcast, Greg Laurie, and he was just talking about how marriage and how the selfishness that we can bring into a marriage and how that typically ends marriages. I just think of the marriages that we know that have ended. And if you know people that have divorced, almost always it's some element of selfishness that comes in. And so this constant reminder of like, man, again, we're on this team, and the more I serve her and the more she serves me, the better our relationship will be. So the dying to ourself, again, is a huge thing of like trust also. I think you are hesitant to sacrifice for the other person if you can't trust that it's going to come back. And so the more that you do that for each other, the more, you kind of foster that in your relationship. And really the trust that we should put isn't just in our spouse. More importantly, it's a trust in God. Because maybe you're in a relationship and you don't feel like they're serving you. Maybe they're not doing well. Maybe some things that are in their life and you're like, man, this isn't changing. I was kind of hoping this was going to change in our relationship. And we put these conditions on our service. That is super tempting for all of us. It's very tempting in a marriage to say, well, how much does this person deserve to be served? And this is where it all comes back to like your relationship with God. It's like, I'm not serving her because she deserves it. I'm serving God as I serve her. She isn't serving me because I'm a good person or because I've earned it. It's a choice that we make over and over again.
And we really don't have any excuse not to serve the other person, no matter how their behavior is. Like, God is calling us when you get married to love that person and to show them God's love. So it does, if he's in a grumpy mood, it doesn't mean that I get out of being kind or serving him or taking care of the things that I take care of. But actually I'm supposed to rise up in those situations and continue to do it in him too. And that's where it blesses. I mean, the fruit of that has really been great.
And we wanted to kind of model that before we send you into this time to talk. So there's so many things that I could say about how you serve me. It's a huge blessing. Marilyn is such a hard worker. She's very others-oriented. She's very kind and loving. But I just think of like, there's so many. But like, I know when we're both tired and the kids have needs and you're just making them food or you're cleaning up or you iron my clothes. I love it when she irons my clothes. I feel so served and so loved by that simple thing. And I know she doesn't like to iron clothes, that's not the dream. But she'll say, hey, what can I do to serve you? And she'll iron my clothes. I was like, man, I feel so loved. And we say thank you a lot in our house. It's not like that's your job to iron. That's your job to cook. It's not that attitude. It's like, I know she's serving me, and I want to say thank you. And that makes her want to do it more. Is there anything you wanted to share there? What do I do to serve you? It's on the paper, so I'm just kind of... I can read it if you want me to.
Well, there's so many things that you do to serve me too, but I think the thing that has meant the most to me is with my anxiety. Like, you have really provided a way for me to not, to be free to work when I can and not work when I can, or be a stay-at-home mom. And so I know that's not the situation for everybody, but for our relationship, just the sacrifice of even working like an extra job for us, if I just couldn't at the time. And that's a big sacrifice. That's really being selfless. And so I feel like that's a huge way you serve me. And you totally take care of our dog. I don't want to take care of our dog, and he does it all.
We have the ugliest, cutest dog you've ever seen. So,
I like her as long as I don't have to take care of her. So he does all of it.
yes,
And the
yes,
kids.
the kids help me.
The kids do.
Okay, this next thing, here's where we're going to do a little ownership and a little confession, okay? Going to get a little bit more difficult, but again, we want to model this. How is my selfishness hurt our relationship? And then she'll do the same. And so the thing, again, I feel like if you're under some naivety that you're going to get married and your selfishness will go away, you are gravely mistaken. The crucible of marriage will show you more selfishness in your life, and that is true. And so I'm introverted, and I've always valued my alone time. And when I don't get enough alone time, I get very moody and I get very irritated. And so where I really experience like the sacrifice of Jesus and him saying like deny yourself is my alone time. And so I am so sorry that even like these last couple months, I've just been really irritable and I've been moody and I've been kind of, get grouchy or feel sorry for myself. And I can get moody for like a few days in a row. And I know it affects her. It increases your anxiety. And I'm so sorry about that. The kids notice it. Some of my kids are so wonderful. They're all wonderful, but some of them are more vocal about like, hey, you look upset. What's going on? And I feel like there's a battle at that very moment for selfishness of like, I have a right to feel this way. And so I just need to confess that. I need to repent that there's moments where I like want to hold on to that. And I just need to be in the Spirit. I need to go to God and say, man, Lord, I'm really struggling. Help me be a man of joy and come home and bless my family with some energy or to be kind or to be more communicative. But I really find that to be a fork in the road. And when I choose the selfish path, I know that hurts our relationship and it hurts our family. So sorry about that.
And I've noticed mostly with selfishness is I have always thought that I didn't realize this about myself till we got married, but it's really hard for me to say sorry to him. And like to admit.
You ought to see her at home. Oh my gosh. She's wonderful.
But it's not that hard with other people like friends, but it's really hard with him. And he's always really quick to say sorry. And so that's where my selfishness, like my want to be right or, oh, that feels nice, keep apologizing. It feels good. Where it's just sin and selfishness. And so I feel like that is what usually hurts our relationship, or my selfishness and my unwillingness to be quick to admit my wrongs and say I'm sorry. So I'm sorry about that.
Forgive you. Thanks for saying that. Okay, it's your turn. Share with your significant other something they have done selfless to bless your relationship. So you're going to start off with some encouragement. Say, man, thanks for serving me. Thanks for blessing me. I see you sacrificing in our relationship, and this means a lot to me. We need to remember those things, and it's good to hear, and it's good to say. So that's the first one. Then the second one's a little bit more difficult. The ownership part is some self-awareness of how is some possible selfishness in your life negatively affecting your relationship. So jump into those.
So the next one is communication, which is so important and crucial, as you all know, if you're in a relationship. So just to get an idea of who's in the crowd here, how many of you are, raise your hand if you're an extrovert. All right. Proud. What about introvert? All right, lots of introverts. How about a verbal processor? How many verbal processors we got here? Okay, internal processors. All right. How many of you say too much when you're mad? Okay. How many of you kind of clam up and get icy? Yeah. I wasn't raising my hand, any of those two, but it's kind of fun to notice, like, a lot of times it's like the opposite. Like, you have the extrovert and the introvert, or the verbal processor and the internal processor together. So
Yes, it is so important to be able to have good communication and the listening skills piece of that. We were just talking recently in our men's group, and we were talking about this over the break when I said, "Is there anything else I can apologize for or tweak in our marriage?" And she said, "When you're looking at your phone when we're trying to talk," and we both admit that we do that more than we would like to. And there's a lot of elbow bumping right now in this congregation, throwing some elbows. So working on these listening skills.
And recognizing that we're different. I didn't really finish that up, but
Yeah.
the reason why we did that was we don't communicate the same. We don't
Right.
say things the same. We don't process the same. And so we really need to be aware of that with each other and sensitive to each other's needs in that way. So
Absolutely. And talking about even like how your family communicates and how my family communicates, and oftentimes that's very different. And so you bring that into a relationship, and that's good to always be talking about, as like tone of voice and listening skills and how we say things and how quickly we resolve things. All the books on relationships always talk about this being the top thing. If you can learn some good communication skills and learn the rules of communication, because there are rules, and we'll mention those in a second here, that can really help you in all areas of life, because all the things that we're trying to problem solve in our relationship, so much of that comes down to communication. And again, I don't know where all the couples are. If you're like, gosh, this is really hard for us, this is a struggle for us, we struggle every day with communication, that is okay. God just wants us to make progress. He wants us to learn some tools and just move the needle a little bit in our communication skills. I love that we talked about the tune-up tonight, the couples tune-up. And I think of an instrument. I think of a beautiful guitar that's going to sound harmonious and make this beautiful music. And no matter how expensive that guitar is, no matter how beautiful it is and how precious that guitar is, you're going to have to tune it once in a while. The weather will change it. It'll get bumped. You know, you playing and putting pressure on it. There's constantly times where you're tuning those strings to keep it in harmony. And that's a good example for our communication skills. It's always something you're going to be tuning. And the moment you kind of take that for granted, it's going to get all out of whack and not be tuned and not sound so good anymore.
I remember he saying, like, I don't know what year this was, probably around year seven, that was challenging. Is he said, I just thought, if I listened really hard for all these years, that I would be able to like coast. Like, aren't we going to get to a spot where we can just like coast and not have to work this hard at communicating? And I just laughed and I thought, no, never. It's never. I mean, you learn things, but it just takes work always. Like, you always have to work to communicate, to stay close. And it's good to know that up front. Like, there really isn't any coasting.
And I think when I coast, the thing that ekes into our relationship is me interrupting her and me not listening, me falling asleep while she's talking, which has happened, or me problem solving too much. Mary Lynn, as she raised her hand earlier, was talking about she's really a verbal processor. She's a godly woman. She's in the scriptures. She knows the answers. Most of the time, she really just needs to share her heart. And after 22 years, I'm still forgetting that. I'm still, like interrupting, like, well, I don't know if that's right. Are you attacking me right now? These kinds of things that interrupt communication, where I can just have poor listening skills or try to problem solve, and really just want to like share your heart.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of times I just want to, I don't know if you've noticed this, but if you do this, but you're going on around in a circle, and I really just want him to listen, and then I usually get to the answer, if he'll just let me get around the circle but a lot of times there's an irrational thought here or comment, and there's an irrational comment here, and I don't really believe that. I'm just kind of processing it, and so sometimes it's so hard for him to like listen to me say that irrational comment and not say something, but then it kind of like stops the flow of what God's doing. And so he's been awesome. He's so good at this, like just letting me like talk through it, and then he realizes it. And then if I am off, of course he speaks truth into my life and like helps me stay like believe what's true. But sometimes you're just needing to talk through it if you're a verbal processor. And he needs time to process. Like, especially early on, I wanted to push him to process quickly, or like, hey, we just had this misunderstanding. Let's talk about it like right now and like work through it. You can't just like walk away. We have to figure this out. And that just isn't fair for him, because he really needs to ponder to understand what he's thinking and feeling. So me like just giving him grace to have time to do that has been really important in our marriage.
We're always trying to compromise on that, of like knowing what style she is in her communication and that verbal processing, and me trying to dig deep to share the things that need to be shared, but she's being patient with me to also give me time. And I'm talking, sometimes it's not like we're trying to sweep our problems under the carpet, but sometimes it kind of takes days, and we will revisit things often. How are you feeling about that conversation? Are we warm toward each other? Are we understanding each other's hearts? A couple days later, like, is there any residual stuff from that conversation? We use that word a lot because sometimes you're communicating and sometimes you don't even know what you're saying, and different people, you remember things differently from the same conversation. That always blows my mind. You'll have a conversation, and it's like you were in two different conversations. That's not what I heard. That's not what I said. And these kind of things go on. So we're always revisiting those kinds of things. Another thing that you did that really helped was kind of like the Oreo of compliment on both sides, because I would get really defensive and insecure early on in our relationship. And so when she would be sharing her heart, a lot of times I was taking it as a personal offense, or that she was attacking me or saying like, you're not loving me well. And so you would kind of start off with a compliment.
He's really good at this too. So he modeled this to me as well. But just trying to say something like we did earlier, like something you appreciate or positive that they're doing, and then share the thing that was hurtful, and then put in another encouraging thing. So because sometimes it just helps us to be more palatable to us and we don't then get defensive immediately. But and it really helps because there is good things he's doing. Like if he did something wrong, there's lots of great things he's doing. So I can focus on those and then share the truth, but also focus on the good things.
And I think a couple of the rules that we wanted to throw out to you is I really appreciated Pastor Wiles' teaching the reminder in James about being quick to hear and slow to speak. That's been like kind of lingering with me all week. I've needed that in just these last months of the goal of good communication in your relationship is to understand the other person's heart. You know, it is not to win the battle. It is to understand. That's the win. And you know, whether I'm off or not, or wherever I'm at, you know, or wherever she is, that's what we're trying to like love each other. It's like, I understand you and she understands me. That meets a huge need in every one of our lives. But if we are not listening, or we just want to win a fight, we're not going to get to that spot. Some of the other really important rules are like not yelling, not raising your voice, not insulting the person with personal jabs or cussing at the other person. There's certain words we should avoid, like always and never. You always do this. You never do this. You never empty the dishwasher. Well, that's not true. You know, then you just start getting into technicalities when you use these words always and never, which are not healthy. Bringing up things from the past just to kind of to dig at them or to try to win. These are not things that build good communication habits, or especially, lastly, just threats. A lot of times when we're angry, we can say things that we don't mean and threaten that person. So we're trying to solve something through communication, and God can help us learn how to do that well so we're not injuring the person. Now we have two problems. The original thing we were talking about, and now we've hurt each other in this communication. Now we got to fix that also. And again, it's tuning the guitar. This is stuff we're always learning. We're always trying to work on. Still after all these years, I'm still finding ways of like, how can I understand more and how can we listen better? And it's a really, really great way to love the other person. Anything else on communication you wanted to share?
I don't think so. Mostly just, I just wanted to say just what a gift marriage is. Like you talk about the sacrifice, the, being selfless, whatever. But it is such a gift to have a great marriage. It's such a blessing, and I am so thankful to be married to Matt and like have this amazing marriage. So it sounds like a lot of maybe like hard things, but the hard things are which many of you guys are doing right now. It's like we're speaking to the choir on a lot of this, but just like that's what makes it so good, and the blessing of it. So
I'm so glad you said that. I think we've talked about this a lot in the church, that there's this temptation for us to think, and I don't know if we picked it up from other generations or from the world, that conflict is going to ruin everything. So we're terrified of conflict. That is like something so real in our lives and in our church. We come upon a problem or a hurt or a conflict and we think, this is the end. If I bring this up, we're done. Like, this is over. And we're terrified to be honest. And that's usually, that fear is there is because we have not seen it or really experienced healthy communication. But it's a gift. It really is. This conflict, this disagreement, that like what we went through the last 2-3 weeks, or even since January 1st, that little season there, I'll be honest, at times it was really hard. Maybe there was a little bit of fear in there, like, wow, where's this going to go? And I remember in one of the conversations, you kind of said a couple strong things to me. Like, I think one of them, sometimes she'll say, I need to call Brian, my co-pastor. She'll threaten me with that. That's not really a threat, but that's like, no, please don't call Brian. I'm sorry. Or she'll say, like, if I'm venting and I'm like, man, I don't know if I want to communicate like this anymore. And you said, like, this is a really pivotal moment in our marriage. I was like, whoa, that just got real quick. That kind of thing. What was the other thing?
Well, that was because we used we broke a few of the rules. We used a little bit of extreme talk, I think. The extreme talk led to the pivotal comment. But
and I think you said we might need to go to counseling.
Yeah, I thought I
too,
did say
which
that.
we've done that before, so that wasn't too big of a threat. I was like, yeah, we probably do need counseling. So anyway, it was a valley. And my whole point with that is like, even though we love each other and we have a great marriage, I hope and pray other people have a marriage like ours. Even in that moment, those fears are there like, oh my gosh, where's this going? And I need the past reminders. I need God to remind me this is a chance for greater intimacy. And I praise God that He has done that. That even though it's a fight, and even though it's hard and it's difficult, those are the bonds. Those are the strings that attach us. That's the glue. And you start getting that momentum to do that over and over and over again, and you get stronger and stronger as opposed to drifting apart. So please give a great attention to this area of communication and always be open to like tuning that and working on that because it's so important. So we'll give you some time to reflect on that and talk. So first, just share with the significant other what is an important need in your communication. What's your favorite thing in good communication? Maybe they just need that reminder of like, hey, when we're communicating, I really need this. So just share that with each other. And the second one, what's a good thing that you want your significant other to ask you? You know, in these coming days or weeks, maybe there's a question that would mean a lot to kick off that communication, or just something that you want them to know or to ask you that would be kind of build your relationship. So
Maybe give them a couple examples of the first question, like
of the first
like
one,
maybe gentleness, like I really need you to respond gently, or I really need you to give me time to process it, or
I need you to put your phone away. Those kinds of things, you know,
just some.
and not,
That's what he means by that question. So.
any example that's meaningful to you. Go for it. All right. I probably sure that wasn't enough time, but wanted to be sensitive to your date night. And again, you can continue that conversation. So, you made it through the whole thing. We're wrapping it up. Give yourself a big round of applause. That was all the topics and the questions, and hope that was a great catalyst for you to have some more intimacy and good conversations tonight. So bringing it all back to the spiritual aspect again, as Mary Lynn and I were just talking, there's so many tools and there's so many great things you can do to enhance your marriage. But again, in premarital counseling, we always say, if you can walk in the Spirit and have good communication, you're going to have a great relationship. So I just want to encourage you again to continue to press into, what does this mean to have God in our relationship? What is God doing in me? And that's really the glue that holds us together. So just wanted to reinforce that. And I loved what Mary Lynn said. God is for your relationship. He's for your marriage, and He really does want to bless you and help you. So we wanted to just pray for you. We'll both pray for you and then talk about a couple quick date ideas. All right? So, Lord, thank you. Lord, thank you for all the people that took time to learn and invest in their relationships. God, we pray for the couples that are just dating, that are listening here today. Lord, give them wisdom in their relationship as you are guiding them to move forward or to not move forward. Lord, just continue to shower them with your grace. Help them to continue to be selfless in this dating time. Lord, for those that are engaged, Lord, continue to give them wisdom and insight, Lord, as they're approaching the new relationship of marriage. And God, for all the married couples, Lord, we just lift them up, Lord, and we believe with all of our hearts that you are the author of marriage. You are for our marriages, and godly marriages just change everything. They change the family. They change our communities. They change our churches and the world, Lord. It's your design. And so help us to have great marriages and godly marriages, and just all that means to us and how it builds our heart, all it means to our children, if that's something that you have in the plan for us with kids and the security that brings. Lord, be in our relationships and help us to be a family that points people to you.
Lord, thank you so much for your presence and that you're for us, not against us, that if we are in marriage, that you have put us together and that you are working in and through that to glorify yourself and point us towards you. And so I pray just the fruit of tonight would be just closer intimacy to you, closer intimacy to each other. I pray that you would protect and encourage each one of these couples as they go. Lord, even just your protection, there'd be a temptation to fight or something to come up. And I just pray, Lord, that you would lead and protect each of these couples. And Lord, we just thank you that you're good and that you are for us. Amen.
Amen. All right. Thank you guys again for coming. We just wanted to throw out some date ideas that are going to come up here sometime. Isn't Waffle House the most romantic place to go? If you haven't gone there at 2 a.m. with your significant other, you've got to do that. Bring a gun if you do that, but that's a great place. And if you think of any great date ideas, you shout that out to us, and we'll say it through the microphone. So feel free, raise your hand if you have date ideas that you like. We love going to coffee places. The restaurants are opening up now a little bit more, which is fantastic. Yeah, and DeWine said we could stay out late tonight, guys. The curfew is lifted, so that's nice. No sarcasm there at all. Sometimes we just kind of look through and Google some new places and some new restaurants that we've never been to, and we'll go do that. I don't know if you've ever kind of looked on the map of a 30-mile radius and thought, oh, here's some parks that we have never been to. There's a lot of amazing, beautiful parks, and we like walking, or when it's cold, just kind of driving and getting some small thing to eat and hanging out in the parks. I don't know if you wanted to share about that one.
Oh.
So sometimes Mary Lynn would say, let's just go to a Dollar Tree store or the Walmart or something like that. and pick out a game that we've never heard of before. Spend like $5 or $10 on a little game, and we would just go out for a date night and just have fun. I felt like a lot of our dates over the years were kind of talking about the same things, or talking about kids, or talking about ministry, and our routine can kind of get a little bit boring. And so sometimes we just need to go have fun or have some different ideas.
Sometimes you've done a craft with me. We'll do a craft.
That's very sacrificial, doing a craft with your spouse.
It is. We've gone to a lot of sporting events too.
We have. You have also sacrificed. Yes. Touché. I liked when we took turns with the surprises. Like, I would plan a date and not tell her and just surprise her. And then the next week she would plan the date and surprise me. That's a great thing. Reading through a book together. I did want to mention Prepare and Rich, which is up here. So Prepare and Rich is this great tool that we use for premarital counseling. But we also, there's one, the Enrich part is something that you can take, this online tool that you take as a couple after you've been married for a few years. And we have done that before we were married, and we did that after we're married, and we'll just kind of read through, and it's got 8 different areas of your relationship that you can talk about. It's a really great tool to just kind of evaluate where you're at and stimulate more conversation, fun topics, rare topics that we've never really talked about. We've pulled out some old albums. And again, our memories are going. So she'll pull out a picture and say, where is this? And what year was this? And I'll say, who is this in this picture? And she'll say, that was you when we were first married. I don't know if you remember. So kind of the photo guest album thing is fun. We put up some restaurants that are open late tonight. Anybody got any?
Oh,
go ahead. No, you go.
No, you go. Anybody else have any other ideas?
Nobody's hands are shooting up. Okay, that's okay. All right, go ahead.
One other thing came to my mind. Just so if you're having a hard time in your marriage or in your relationship, please don't keep it to yourself. I meant to say this earlier, but like, it can be really lonely, and then Satan can use that so much to just tear you apart. So please, like, be open with another couple, or come to us or somebody else that you trust, and just like, everyone struggles in their marriage. There's nobody that doesn't, and so we need each other so that we don't drift farther and farther apart. So please don't put off doing that. If you're feeling like it's not going well, just seek out some friends to talk to about it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you guys again for coming. It was so good to connect, even as we were connected in between, and fun to see you guys talking. So thank you so much, and hope you guys enjoy your date night. Thanks for coming to the Couples Tune Up.
Have fun.